Hey everyone, welcome back to the Seven Figure Flipping Podcast. This is Jessup Warnock, the marketing director for Seven Figure Flipping. We're coming at you with a replay of one of our best, most listened to podcasts. In this episode, Bill interviews Bob Burg. That's a great name. The author of The Go-Giver. If you haven't heard of this book, it's one of the most influential books for Bill and so many other business owners around the world. This episode goes into the importance of bringing value to the sales table, as well as the 5 elements of value that you need to implement into your entrepreneur endeavors. For more help with your entrepreneur endeavors in real estate, there's a link in the description of the podcast. It's for our Runway program. Click to see if you qualify. Join us at our next event. We'd love to see you there. That's enough from me. Here's Bill Allen.
My name is Bill Allen, and I'm the leader of a group of elite house flippers and wholesalers called Seven Figure Flipping. We don't brag or show off our success, but instead let integrity and stewardship be our guide. We are dedicated to helping people unlock the freedom they desperately need. If you ask other real estate investors, they will say to keep your secrets quiet. But we believe in abundance, not scarcity, and that's why we are the elite. We are Seven Figure Flipping, and this podcast is our playbook.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Seven Figure Flipping Podcast. This is Bill Allen, and I'm incredibly excited about my guest on the show today. I've been trying to get this author on the show for a while. He has influenced me. He's influenced a lot of you that are in the mastermind group, and if you've read some of his books, I know that he's influenced you for sure. So when I was getting going in this business about 5 or 6 years ago, I was just getting started. And even before I was flipping a house a year, I had some rental properties. I was trying to understand real estate and get into it. And I was investing in the stock market. And then what happened was I got married. We had our first son, and I said, I got to figure out how to support more people than just me. And I was pretty selfish at that time when I was single, and I was just doing whatever I wanted. And I was, all the money that I made was basically just going towards my retirement or back to me. I was saving a ton of money, but I feel like I was pretty selfish at that time. And then when I got married to Lucy, I realized that I have to support 2 people with one income, and I want to be financially free early in life. And then when we had our first son, same thing. I was constantly now saying, okay, it's not about me. It's not about me anymore. So really trying to figure out how to do that in the real estate world. And I was super cheap. Thrifty. People called me, Lucy used to call me tight, is what they say in the UK a lot. So I had a library card, and I would go down to the library and I would get books out on personal development, mindset, and then on real estate. I started studying real estate, and I wouldn't even buy the book. I would just go down to the library, and I still have my library card, and I still can get books on Audible free from the library and things like that. But I remember picking this book up, and this book is called The Go-Giver, and the author's name is Bob Burg. And today I'm going to talk to Bob about the 5 laws inside of this book and what this book meant to him and how he wrote it, where the idea came from and things like that. But for me, it really changed a lot of things for me, the way that I thought about value and the way that I thought about money. And what I realized was if I give more in value than I receive in payment, then everything that I do is going to change. And it has to be a win-win. When we started working with these sellers and making low offers, I couldn't wrap my mind around that. But this book really helped me push in that direction. I've been trying to get Bob on the podcast for a while, and he graciously accepted recently. So I'm really excited to bring him on with you guys, and selfishly for me, because I want to hear what he has to say, and I want to hear some of the laws and dig a little bit deeper in them, and also give the relation to real estate that we do. So without further ado, I want to introduce Bob, but I'm really, really excited about this interview, and I hope you guys are as well. We're going to share. I don't know where we're going to go, but I'm really excited to dig into a lot of the things from this book and some of the things that I pulled out that I'm currently working on. So Bob Burg is a sought-after speaker at company leadership and sales conferences, sharing the platform with everyone from today's business leaders and broadcast personalities to even a former U.S. president. Bob is the author of numerous books on sales, marketing, and influence, with total book sales of well over 1 million copies. And his book, The Go-Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, has sold over 925,000 copies on its way to 1 million, and it's been translated into 28 languages. His and John's newest parable is The Go-Giver. In the Go-Giver series is the Go-Giver Influencer. Bob is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise, believing the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. This his belief is that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. This is huge. He's also the unapologetic animal fanatic and is a past member of the board of directors of Furry Friends Adoption Clinic and Ranch in his hometown of Jupiter, Florida. So without further ado, guys, I want to bring on the one and only Bob Burg, author of The Go-Giver. I can't wait for this one, guys. Hey, Bob, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. This has really been an honor to bring you onto the show. As you know, in the introduction that I talked about, we give your book, The Go-Giver, to all of our new members that come into the mastermind group. And really bringing you onto the show has been a real honor for me. And this is going to be really exciting, these next few minutes that we spend together on the podcast. So thank you so much for being here.
Bill, the honor is mine. Thank you for having me. I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for your kind words. That means a lot to me.
Yeah. I'd like to start out with kind of where did this concept and really to kind of just spend some time maybe digging into the Go-Giver book, because some of the people that are listening to the podcast may not have read it before. Some have read it. And I think even myself, I'm very interested to find out kind of where this concept came from for you, because it was extremely influential in my life, just picking up off the library shelf, 5 years ago and really starting my journey in this flipping and wholesaling houses. It just changed the way that I think. So I'm interested to hear that.
Oh, thank you. I had a book out years ago, and I've been kind of at this for a long time. So this is back in the mid-90s. My first book was Endless Referrals, and the subtitle, Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. So it was really a how-to book written for salespeople and entrepreneurs who knew they had a great product or service. They were proud of it. They realized it brought fantastic value to others, but they may not have felt comfortable in the process of going out and creating those relationships that led to new business, led to referral-based and introduction-based businesses. So it was traditional how-to, and it sold very well. I'm very grateful for that, and have done updated, revised editions back in '99, and then the last one was in 2005. But again, it was a how-to book. Throughout the years, I've always enjoyed, and I read plenty of how-to books, and I love how-to books, but I also read a lot of parables. I've always enjoyed reading those. Short stories that kind of really make an impact. They come from the heart, they reach the heart. As you know, stories tend to connect, right, on a deeper level. And I thought, what if we could take the basic premise of Endless Referrals, which was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust, and put that into parable form. And so the first thing I just asked myself in terms of titling it was, well, so what is the essence of a person who's able to very quickly and very sustainably create those kinds of know, like, and trust relationships? And it came down to that they're givers. In other words, their focus is on giving value, bringing immense value to others. So we came up with the Go-Giver as a title. But the best thing I did for the book was to reach out to John David Mann, who at that time I knew only as the editor-in-chief of a magazine I was writing for, and asked him to be the lead writer and storyteller. Because really, I'm a how-to guy. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. John's a magnificent storyteller. And I asked John, and when I say I asked, I mean I pleaded with him to be the lead writer and storyteller. And fortunately, he agreed to. And so that's really how the book got started in and of itself. The interesting thing is it didn't take us long to write it, but it took us a while to find a publisher, because we went through, I think it was 25 rejections over the course of a year until, finally landing with Portfolio, a division of Penguin Random House, who's just been a great publishing partner for us.
So why is that? Is that they just didn't want to pick up a parable, or they, as they were reading it, they just didn't see that it was going to have traction, or what was the reason that they wouldn't pick it up?
Various responses. Some of them was like, well, the world doesn't need one more parable. Some were, yeah, we like it, but it's just not really us. It's not what we do, which is fine, because we're not necessarily a match for everyone. And it kind of went like that. But finally, when the right one was there, we connected with them, and they turned out to be really the right one for us, because they've really been fantastic, very supportive. Yeah. They're, with a book, it's really up to, unless you're a celebrity author, okay, unless you're Stephen King or, someone, the publisher isn't going to really do the PR. You've got to do that yourself. You've got to go out and you've got to hustle that. And you've got to, hey, I've been doing interviews on this book for 11 years now, and I'm going to keep doing it. But they've been very supportive in every way in terms of when I wanted, books sent to different media and so forth, they always did it. When it was a matter of, hey, do you think this idea would work? They were always there providing their wisdom. So they've been just fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm always interested in that because, sometimes it takes a long time to get published and then it's a hit right away. And then sometimes it's very quick to publish, but it takes a while to become a hit and really get out into the mainstream. What about that? Did it take a while to become popular? And what was that kind of story like?
Bill, I got to tell you, in just about everything I've done in life, I've rarely had quick successes. It's always been a matter of putting a plan together, staying with it, getting knocked down a lot, getting back up, doing it, like most of us. Mm-hmm. This is the first book or the first real project I've ever done that had immediate success. It just hit right away. And what was interesting was the first wave of, I guess if you want to call them adopters of the book, and we know this only because of the many emails that we received, were the people who had already been living their lives and conducting their businesses this way. These were very, very successful entrepreneurs and salespeople and CEOs and people who said, what you and John have put into this book, this is what I've been telling people is the way to do it, but people haven't believed me, right? Because you know how it is. It's that third party sometimes. So they were ordering hundreds of books, thousands of books. We had a couple companies get 15,000 books to spread throughout their company. We loved it, right? But these are the people who were already doing this long before the book came out. They certainly didn't learn any of it from John and me, and none of these principles are particularly new anyway, right? There's nothing really new under the sun. I remember what Jim Rohn used to say, beware the person who comes promising new fundamentals, right? Because, And so now the second wave, though, were the people who received the book from someone like that, or were told about it from someone like that, or read about it from someone like that. Then they got the book and it was like, wow, we didn't know you could really do business this way and be successful and so forth and all those things. So that, and then it's been a combination of word of mouth. And, again, we constantly promote and we keep the engine running, but it's really been great people like yourself who picked up the book, who found some value in it and then began spreading it to other people. And that's how the book has really been long lasting, as opposed, and we're just, we're getting close to the 1 million mark in books. So, just in that book sold. And so that's pretty exciting.
That's amazing. It's really cool to hear that because I can see how that can happen. I remember when I picked it up, it's an easy read, right? So you go through Parable, you're hearing a story. I couldn't put it down, frankly. It just was something that just, you wanted to see what was going to happen next. And then you get through the book and it's just, you're right. It's those principles that are already in you that are just now being laid out and structured in a law of 5 and saying, okay, now I can, take this and move forward with it and be more intentional about doing it and really think about that. And for those that I give it to, they immediately they say, hey, thank you. Some people that are going, wow, I need to live my life a little bit more like this. And I see the value in it. And then the other thing for me is it's not a book that I recommend people just read one time. I'll read this book every year because it's a reminder every single year to the way that I do books. And I talk about it on the podcast a lot is I'll read an Audible book now. So I'll buy the Audible book. I'll read it really fast, usually 2 times speed or 1.5 times speed. And then what I'll do is if it's one of my favorites, I'll buy it and I'll put it on the shelf. Mm-hmm. And so the books that are on my shelf are like my VIP list. And then I have a huge list in my Audible collection. I see you have like thousands of books behind you, which is amazing. And so then what I'll do is I'll go back to those books pretty much every year. And those are my fundamentals, my foundation, and I'll read those. So yours is an early on in the beginning of every year, I sit down and I'll plan my year. And the Go-Giver is one that I pick up every year and make sure that I remind myself. It's like probably one of 5 that I'll reread every year in the beginning of the year. So
that is a great compliment.
Well, hey, I appreciate you writing it, because this is the thing these are the legacies that we leave behind, right? And this is the stuff that we're trying to do, is put out the content and impact other people, which is exactly what you talk about in the book. Is if you can, give to others and make those kind of impacts, then it's going to come back to you, right? So why don't we jump into those kind of laws that you talk about in the book and just quickly kind of run through them. So those the folks who haven't listened or haven't read the book that are listening can understand a little bit of what it's about. And then those who have, it's just a reminder for them, and maybe their annual reminder that they need to pick that book up again and read it.
Yeah. So the laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. Law number one, the law of value, that's really the foundational law. And this says that your true worth, in the business sense, of course, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, when you first hear that, it's a little counterintuitive. Give more in value than I take in payment? How am I supposed to survive in my business, never mind thrive? Kind of sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy, right? Give more in value than I take in payment, until we understand the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It simply is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth to another human being that they will willingly exchange their money for this and be very glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit. So, let's say we look at one of the characters in the book, Ernesto Iafrate, who had Iafrate's Italian Cafe, a restaurant, a very high-end restaurant. So, you go in there and you're going to probably pay a pretty penny for, what you're having. But when you think about it, the way you were greeted at the door and how good they made you feel and how important they made you feel, and the way you were escorted to the table, and the way the wait team introduced themselves and came over and took care of you, and the ambiance and the way the food tasted, and the presentation, and how just everything about it was just so perfect. So you may have paid 100, 150, whatever it is for the bill, but you came away feeling like $1 million, right? You received more in value than what you paid. Now, Ernesto Iafrate, the owner, though, made a very healthy profit. Why? Because his cost of goods sold, the food, the staff, keeping the restaurant open, the whole thing, obviously cost him a lot less than what he charges for it. And it's like with any product or service, the key is the experience that person has. And what's important in today's day is that, technology has really leveled off the playing field. And so most products and services are pretty similar. And so with that in mind, what keeps, and hey, let's face it, if a prospective customer or client cannot distinguish between any two or more products or services, it's always going to come down to who has the lowest price. I mean, that's just human nature. So what happens is we need to, and unless your last name is Walmart, right, trying to make low price your unique selling proposition is not a good way to do business. It's not productive. It's not profitable. It's not sustainable, right? When you sell on low price, you're a commodity. When you sell on high value, you're a resource. And so the key is, so how do you, when you have a product that's a commodity, how do you separate yourself? How do you distinguish yourself? How do you communicate that additional value, right, that takes price out of the equation? And the good news is there are probably dozens, if not hundreds, of ways to communicate that additional value, but they tend to come down to 5 what we call elements of value. And those elements of value are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation. And to the degree that you're able to communicate one or more, hopefully all 5 of those at every single touch point, that's the degree that you take both price and your competition out of the picture. You become a value-based salesperson or entrepreneur. And that's really law number 1. I can take less time for the others.
Oh, it's okay. I think we should just dive in this real quick and give I'll give the comparison to what we do in real estate quickly.
Sure.
Because for this one, this is huge. We show up and we're cash buyers, right? And for us, we have to buy a house at a deeply discounted rate in order to profit, to make money. We have to fix it up. We have to add and force appreciation, add value to this property to make profit. And that means that the homeowner has to sell to us at a very deep discount. We have to buy deeper than anybody else, frankly. And so we have to provide something to them, something of value. And we have to also communicate that we're different than the other competition that is coming saying the same thing. So if we can't provide a creative financing resource for them potentially, or hey, we'll actually move all of the things out of the house. We'll take care of all of the problems. We have a reputation online that talks about who we are and that what we're doing in the community, things like that. It's really important that we can provide value and they see value. Otherwise, like you said, it's going to be a race to the bottom on price. And for us, it's about them getting the highest price of their house as possible. And they have to understand that we are giving them so much value. They're trading equity for ease and speed of transaction in our business.
Right.
So
exactly.
And running a mastermind group for me, same thing. People pay, tens of thousands of dollars to be in our mastermind group. So what they need to understand is that when they come in here, that for me as the owner, I've got to provide way more value. I see it. I have to over deliver. So they say, you know what? It actually would cost me more not to be here than it would to. In any transaction that we make, somebody actually takes their hard-earned money, hands it to you, saying what you have is more valuable than what I'm giving you.
Yeah. And here's the thing, and this is why the free market works so well. And when I say free market, what I mean is no one's forced to do business with anyone else. Okay. In any free market based, if you want to say transaction or sale or what have you, there are always at least two profits, the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each one comes away significantly better off afterwards than they were before. There's not a fixed pie like in a socialistic type of horrible situation. Okay, it's with the free market. It's value creates value creates value, and you're creating a much bigger pie.
Yep, I agree. Both people have to win in these situations to feel good, right? And that's a great transaction. And that's what has to happen in our real estate business. That's what happens in our mastermind group. That's what happens anywhere that we go. That if I'm handing my money over and afterwards I feel like, oh my gosh, I just gave them way more than I got in value. That's a problem for the seller, right?
Yeah. Well, not only are you going to resent that, you won't do business with them again, and you certainly won't have nice things to say about it. And that kind of goes into law number 2, which is the law of compensation. And this one says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number 1 says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number 2 tells us the more people whose lives you touch with the exceptional value you provide, the more money with which you'll be rewarded.
And you going on 1 million copies sold of this book is saying right there that you are touching so many lives. I feel the same way inside of our mastermind group. The more people that we can get in front of with this podcast and serve at our live events and everything that we do, the more people that changed for me to an impact-driven business versus how much money can I make? And when that happens, and that's what I love about this one, is the more people that we can get in front of, the more people that can be moved and changed, and we can help change their lives, they grow their real estate businesses, the better we are going to be. And
here's the key. The focus, when you said an impact-driven business, see, that's the key. The focus, this is why we say, John and I say, that money is simply an echo of value. Right? It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning. Why? Because when you focus on the value that you're providing another person, they're much more likely, obviously, to want to do business with you. Why? Well, when I speak at sales conferences, I'll often begin by saying, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money. And they're not even going to buy from you because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And that's the only reason, and again, in a free market environment, that's the only reason why anyone should buy from you or from me or from anyone else. What this means is that the entrepreneur, the salesperson, must focus on bringing immense value to that other person. To the degree you do that, the focus is on the value you're providing. The money is simply a natural result of that value. Focus on the money, you won't make as much of it. Okay, because you got to be focused on them, because they're not buying for you or selling to you because you're focused on yourself. It's what can you do for them.
That's fantastic. Money is the echo of value. I absolutely love that. So I'm taking that one away from here. So what's the third law?
Third law is the law of influence. And this one says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Again, counterintuitive sounding until you step back and you realize that the greatest leaders, the top producers, the highest money earners, this is simply how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. They're always looking for ways to make it about the other person. But let me qualify this, because and this is important. It can easily be misunderstood. When we say place the other person's interests first, we certainly don't mean you should be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Absolutely not at all. It's simply understanding, as Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of the mentors, and you and I talked about this a little earlier, that the golden rule of business is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Well, there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely and authentically moving from that I focus or me focus to an other focus, looking for ways to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, told Joe, make your win all about the other person's win.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's about them, not about you. If you're outwardly facing, it just changes everything. And I feel like there was a time in my life where I was a lot more selfish and thinking about this. Like my goal was to make more money.
I think we all went through that when we were younger,
Yeah, for sure.
We learn as we go along,
Yeah. And this is something that I think the earlier that you can realize this and the earlier you can start exhibiting it, the more successful you will become.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. And what about the next one? What's the next one?
Law number 4 is the law of authenticity. And this one says that the most the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. One of the mentors in the story, Deborah Davenport, shared a lesson she learned that basically all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. When you do, however, when you, as we like to say, show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They feel comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. You're that person they want to do business with. They begin to know you. They like you. They love you. They trust you. They want to see you succeed. They want to be in relationship with you. They're much more likely to tell others about you. So it's important, though, in showing up authentically that we see a lot of times people, when they don't show up authentically, it's not because they have ill intent or they're trying to be, trying to rip someone off or there's all sorts of people out there, but that's not what we're talking about. Really, when most of the time when people don't show up authentically, it's because they really don't have the self-confidence to do so. And it's difficult to show up authentically when you don't feel you have anything worthy of showing up authentically for. So I think we have to understand that we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, and we need to certainly with our weaknesses know which ones we can ignore when they're just not important, which ones need to be mitigated, meaning they need to be watched, and ones that need to be actually changed into strengths. Because if and authenticity should never be used as an excuse to not grow where you need to. It's sort of like the person saying, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to do any different, that wouldn't be authentic of me. That's malarkey. That's baloney. It simply means that person has an authentic problem that he needs to work on and improve upon so that he can be a better, more effective, authentic version of himself. Okay. So, but we also need to know what our strengths are. And we all have those strengths. That's why mastermind groups are so great, because you've got other people coming together who care about you. At the same time, they're not so emotionally involved with you that they can't really see. Because what happens is, as human beings, we're so emotionally involved with ourselves that we can't necessarily know what our strengths are. We don't necessarily see them. We see the world simply from our eyes, and lots of that we might have a certain strength, but we assume that everybody can do that. Why? Well, because we can. Everyone can, right? And so that's why mastermind groups, coaches such as yourself, people are so important, because it is very valuable to be able to really understand, that intrinsic value you bring to the table, but also that market value, that combination of strengths, traits, talents, and characteristics that allow you to bring value to the marketplace in a way that will lead to your being financially rewarded.
As I listen to you speak here on the authenticity side, there's two things that come to mind. The first one is that I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking about my personal life a lot more than I am my business life. And some of these things where you see you think something of yourself, but somebody else sees something different. I feel like that's a perfect relationship conversation, because, in our life with our spouses, is I always feel we're very different people, my wife and myself. And what I see a lot of times is I'm coming from the angle where I look at things through my lens. And really, you said something about kind of, like this confidence side, or you're kind of struggling with some of these things to actually realize that they are weaknesses of yours. And so for me, that's something that I know I really need to work on in my relationship right now. And then on the business side, it's so easy to be authentic today with social media and all these other things that are going on. And we're just putting something out there that is not really what's going on. So sharing your struggles and sharing your failures and your losses and all of these things, a lot of times people will just push that stuff down and only share the wins and how everything's going great. And when in reality, if you start sharing some of that authenticity, and I'm speaking a little bit more from the mastermind group side, what we see is when people are vulnerable, when people say, hey, I'm struggling, hey, I need some help, and they're openly, outwardly like giving that, they're being authentic, not just saying, oh, business is great, everything's fine. Oh man, we're killing it over here. This is working really well. And what I've seen lately over the past year or so is really being vulnerable and authentic has changed their businesses for the better, because they're saying, hey, I'm actually really struggling here. And they're not waiting too long until it's 6 months later and they've been losing money to actually raise their hand and say, I need some help. So, and the same thing goes for Facebook and Instagram and all the social media. Everybody is, spending 2 hours to make themselves look like they just woke up in the morning for the first time. And so it's very easy to fall. Right. Exactly. To fall into that. So really be true and authentic in your business and with your employees and your staff and all of these things. Like you guys heard me at Flip Hacking Live stand up on stage and share a lot of my struggles. And that was me. It's exactly who I am. We're not perfect. Even though the owner of the mastermind group, we aren't perfect. We make mistakes on a regular basis. And things will happen. Things will move forward. Working on that. So I love this one. This is even listening to you go through these, it's bringing things out that that maybe I didn't pick up from the book and stuff like that. So let's do the final one, because I know we're limited on time.
Well, that's okay. Law number 5 is the law of receptivity, which says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Now, if law number 1, the law of value, is the foundational principle, law number 5 is sort of the one that brings it home, because you can give and again, we're trying to bringing value, and you can do all that's great. But if you're not willing to allow yourself to receive, it shuts down the flow. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help them. It's sort of like breathing out and breathing in, right? You can't just breathe out. That's what we did near the end of the story when Pindar, the main mentor, asked Joe to breathe out and continue to hold that breath. Well, you can only do that for so long without having to breathe in, because that's being human, right? We breathe out, we breathe in. Same thing in the animal kingdom. We breathe out, we breathe in. We breathe out carbon dioxide, we breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving. We breathe in, which is receiving. And despite the messages that we receive from the world around us, and about prosperity, about money, about wealth, we don't receive mixed messages about that. We receive very negative messages. You'd almost think that anyone who has made a lot of money did it on the backs of others or by cheating or by, now, again, it's a big world. People do things. But again, to the degree that we, and I guarantee you, everyone watching this, listening to this, we operate in a free market environment where no one is forced to buy from us, as we were talking about earlier, right? So in order for you to get very, very wealthy, you have got to bring exceptional value to the lives of many, many people, placing their interests first, showing up authentically, but then you also have to allow yourself to receive. Now, here's the thing. So unlike the message we receive from the world around us, giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. Giving and receiving are simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in tandem. So, by all means, provide value, focus on others, focus on providing value, understanding that when you do that, you're creating what we call a benevolent context for your success. And then when that money comes to you, allow yourself to receive it. And, we receive not only money, but joy, love, friendship, advice, helpfulness, what have you. And money certainly a part of it. And so that I think is really the key. And so, but what happens is because of the way the world from, the time where so with many people, it's a combination of, family, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, where again, there's so much negative programming that it gets into the unconscious. And it's very easy to think, oh, well, if I make a lot of money, does that mean I've done something wrong? Does that mean and we're not thinking that consciously, but I'm saying unconscious. And that's why it's so important, I think, to make a study of prosperity. And that's why I read Randy Gage's prosperity blog. I read David Nagel's prosperity. David wrote, not The Millionaire Within, I think The Millions Within, David Nagel, T. Harv Eker's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, is Ellen Rogan, who's a financial advisor, who what she does is she writes on actually attitudes about money, okay, and prosperity mindset. So there's all these people out there who study prosperity. Well, and they write about it. And my feeling is, you know what? Buy those books, buy those CDs, or watch them on what have you, because we get the garbage, this anti-prosperity just thrown at us all the time. So that comes naturally, that comes into our brains naturally. And I want you to start questioning your premises, okay? I mean, when you hear someone say, well, millionaires are bad people, or someone's filthy rich, or all these other things, question the premise. Why is that a thing? Okay. Why is someone who made a lot of money and they say, I wonder what they had to do to get that? Question the premise and say, I wonder who they served and who they helped, or what product or service they brought to the marketplace that made life better for others. I wonder what they did there. Okay, so question those premises, begin studying prosperity. Don't accept as a priori that there's something wrong with earning a lot of money. No, if you do it as a result of bringing immense value to the lives of many people, by all means, receive it, and receive it with gratitude.
I think I could spend an hour diving into this one, because this is all mindset, right? This is how you think. This goes back to when you were a child, all the way through your life, of how you were brought up, what people were saying to you. Was there money around the house? Was there not money? Was that fancy car that the neighbor bought being, inside of your household said, I wonder what they had to do to get that, those kind of things.
Randy Gage does this great thing about movies and all the negative memes in movies. He has some great vignettes about this. But one of the things he said, just really quickly, and this to me is very telling. The first Spider-Man movie years ago, Uncle Ben and Peter are sitting there talking, and Peter asked something, why, they're so poor or whatever. I can't remember what he said, but Ben's answer was, well, Peter, we may not be rich, but at least we're honest. What a horrible thing for a child to watch and see. And this happens, by the way, all the time. So yeah, we could talk about this for hours.
I know. And I'll be the first one to say that I turned off the news years ago because I was just pouring negativity. All I saw was negative, negative, negative. And I said, you know what? I just can't be around that. I'm going to fill my life with positive energy. I'm going to look for success. I'm going to study success. I'm going to figure out how to be that successful person. Yeah. And it's amazing to see the change of what you put in to what the result is that comes out. You mentioned sending and receiving messages. It's interesting because in the Navy, in the military, the definition that we have of communication is properly sending and receiving a message. It's not just sending the message. You also have to, it has to be properly received. Otherwise we're not communicating. Right. So, I heard something a while ago, and when I read this book, I thought about compliments because you talk about that a bit. And for me, years ago, I really struggled to accept a compliment. It's really hard for some reason for me to accept a compliment because I just want to say, oh, it's no problem. It was no big deal, and to say you're welcome was something that almost wasn't in my vocabulary. And I heard somebody say once, there was a time in his life where he needed a compliment. And then there was a time in his life where he was able to receive a compliment even when he didn't need one. And for me, that was huge. I said, you know what? That is the idea of that is exactly kind of where I was. Like I needed a compliment. I didn't, it's just an interesting concept. Like, are you able to receive a compliment even when you don't need one? Yeah.
And let me just hit on that for a second, because you bring up a very important point. Receptivity, like any other muscle, needs to be developed. And just like you don't start out lifting 300 pounds, you start out with 5 pounds and then you work your way up to 20 and 50 and right. Mm-hmm. It's the same with this. If receptivity, if you feel it's an issue with you, aside from really looking into why it is, and again, beginning to study prosperity, because when you study these prosperity masters, you'll learn about start small. Start with accepting compliments. When someone compliments you, when you feel yourself about to go, oh, no, just instead say, thank you. That's it. Just thank you. I appreciate that. Or thank you. I'm very grateful. Boom. Let yourself and start building on your small successes. It might be the person who offers to buy your coffee, and usually you won't allow anybody to ever do that. Instead, you just say, oh, thank you. That's very kind. Boom. So start building those receptivity muscles little by little, building on your small successes.
Yeah. And I think the beginning, it just starts in identifying those things that you need to work on, right? That's the first step.
That's always the most important thing. We've got to be able to see that it's an issue, because if we don't understand there's an issue, obviously we're not going to work on it. Why would we work on something that isn't an issue?
Yep. And it goes back to that law of authenticity. You can keep going back to these places to really understand these 5 laws are so powerful in what we're doing. And when we really just break it down and diagnose what's happening in our life, in our business, our personal life, financial life, it's all there. So, I want to ask the listeners before we kind of wrap up, it's just going back through these. I was kind of taking notes as you were talking, Bob, and I really love this. Just asking you guys is sit down and really take a look at what's happening in your life and your business. So are you adding more value? So ask yourself that. Are you adding more value? How many people have you helped? Are you focused on others, or are you focused on yourself? Are you being authentic? And then how do you take a compliment? So after we finish up here, I'm going to take a hard look at everything that I do in my personal life and professional life. I'm going to answer these questions, and I'm going to figure out how I can work on these 5 things. And I think if I can continue to progress, and I can help more people, and I can add more value, and I can focus more on others than I do on myself, and I can be as authentic as I possibly can and really diagnose what's going on, and then I can take a compliment even when I don't need one, then I know that I'm really going to be moving the needle in my life and my business, and just constantly be growing and being better, because that's it. We're never going to hit the place where we're perfect, right? But we're constantly striving to get there. So Bob, I'll tell you what, this was one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. I really have enjoyed, you're welcome. I really have enjoyed, I've really enjoyed this. And I think that I could definitely talk to you for hours. It's amazing to see, but, and I thought I would get just a kind of a book report from the book. And it was even more than that I got from this conversation, which and I've read the book probably 10 times.
Wow.
And so, and I wanted to hold one up here, but I don't have one because I gave my last one away last week. So I usually have a stack of them because we send them out to everybody, but we had some people join and they're all gone. So I don't even have one right now. So I'm going right after this to buy them. And I hope all of our audience and listeners do the same thing. So how can people, if they want some more kind of Bob Burg, they want some more of the books, how can they find like more about you? What else can they do to do that?
Yeah, well, they can go to burg.com, and that's BURG.com. And when they're there, they can scroll down. It will show them where they can get chapter 1 of any of my books, so they can read that first to see if they like it. Then they can always click through to purchase if they'd like. There's also information, or if they scroll down a little more to the blog, at burg.com/blog, but I'm doing a video series. I had a video series, Endless Referrals, but now the newest video series is Influence and Success Insights, and they can go back and binge watch if they'd like, or binge listen. And we also have 2 more of our Endless Referrals, the Go Giver Way live workshops coming up in Florida. One in April late April will be Orlando, and then I think in early June is in Jupiter, Florida. So if they go to endlessreferrals.com, they can check that out and see if it's something they'd like to explore.
Awesome. Well, hey, before I let you go, I just want to ask one question that I've really never asked anybody before. You have thousands of books behind you. Other than your books, what is the one book that has really kind of changed things for you? Can you narrow it down to one?
Well, it's difficult because there are different books in different areas and so forth. But there's one that I'd say that should really be read by every single person. It was actually written in the 1960s, and it was never meant to be published. He was teaching his sales team at the time, but he was very much, although he's a very best-selling author in terms of numerous times on the New York Times best-selling list on economics and politics and different things. But really, he wrote this just as a sales teaching guide. And then after he died about 10 years ago, his widow found the 2 short manuscripts. One was on human nature specifically, and the other was on how human nature relates to sales. And to me, my opinion is the study of human nature is about the most important study there is, because it's from understanding that we really understand how the world works. In the book itself, he did not title this, but the person who she sold the rights to titled it The Secret of Selling Anything. It's by Harry Brown, Browne. Now, a couple of things. It was written in the 60s, so the language is a little bit 60-ish, okay? And so a little bit politically incorrect in terms of it's not he or she or him or her. It's more, okay. So I just ask people, don't be offended by that. It was just that I happen to know him personally. He was a hero of mine. He was not in any way a sexist. It's just the language of the times, and I apologize for that. Well worth the book, the principles. I actually did a blog post on this at burg.com/blog. If you look up the secret, if you in the search, you write "The Secret of Selling Need Not Be a Secret." I think as soon as you put in "The Secret of Selling," it will pop up. And it talks about the 3 major principles that he talks about. And I'm telling you, once you understand, and this is a book, as you can tell, I've read tons and tons and tons of times. And very few people know about this book. Very few people. I'd like everybody to know about this book. Because
all right,
well,
all of our listeners know about it. And if you're not watching on YouTube, then you can't see all the dog ears and the sticky notes that are all over the place. And that thing looks like it's been.
You know what I love the most about Harry Brown is that he worked within truths. In other words, he made a study of human nature. He learned and understood human nature. He honored and respected it. He didn't say, "Oh, I wish people were like this, and so I'm going to make believe they are." No, he started from where people are, and then he worked at it to advance, the world and himself and others. And so that, I think, is such a big differentiator with people. First, deal in truths and go from there when you understand that to now make everything, better.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's not a book that I heard. I actually wrote down, I was trying to think of what book you were going to say. And Bob, thank you so much for being on with us. I really appreciate your time. I think that this was incredibly valuable for our listeners and selfishly for me. I bring the people on that I really want to talk to. And I have a whole page of notes here that I'm going to take away from this myself. So,
well, again, I take that as a great compliment, and I do just love what you're doing. It's entrepreneurship at its finest. It's serving the world. And, remember as Zig Ziglar, and you might be too young to remember Zig.
I know exactly what you're going to say, but say it.
Famous saying, which is often misquoted, which frustrates me to death because it's such a great saying. But the saying actually was, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want.
I love it. I mean, that is the premise of the Go-Giver mentality.
Yeah, it really
is.
It. Right?
That's it. And that's exactly what we try to do here at Seven Figure Flipping, what we try to do at Blackjack Real Estate, what I try to do in my life, and obviously what you're trying to do. And it's just amazing to be part of everybody's journey and just be that kind of guide along the way to help them out. So, Bob, thank you so much for being with us. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be able to interview you. And I wish you a lot of success in your life and business going forward too.
Thank you. Likewise, my brother. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.